The Hidden Apaches. The Apache Kid, Part 1. From Killer of Witches. Previous posts discussed some possibilities for how the hidden Apaches disappeared in the Sierra Madre of Mexico and how many there might have been after Geronimo surrendered. This post continues a series of historical stories about the known remnant Apaches from the Geronimo Wars hidden in the Sierra Madre of Mexico as late as 1935, and some say to this day. In the 1920s and 1930s, Apache women and children were nearly always a major part of the Apaches seen in the Sierra Madre after Geronimo surrendered in early September 1886. A previous post considered how many Apaches might have stayed in the Sierra Madre after Geronimo surrendered. The answer was roughly 20 men and 160 women and children, many more than the 7 who broke off from the Geronimo surrender. In addition to these, it's generally believed that others such as outlaws might have also camped with the Apaches in the Sierra Madre after the Geronimo band surrendered. One known outlaw who is believed to have often appeared in the Apache camps, was in fact an Apache who was once a highly respected scout for the U.S. Army, Apache Kid. This is part 1 of Apache Kid's story. The former Apache scout, known as Apache Kid, was one of the most famous and fascinating outlaws to appear in the late 19th century Southwest. He spent years operating out of the Sierra Madre and was one of the best-known hidden Apaches. After his escape while being transported to Yuma prison and avoiding being caught in one of the greatest manhunts in Arizona history, Kid is known to have lived on both sides of the border, but predominantly in the Sierra Madre, and is given credit for raids that kept the border in turmoil. No one knows for certain how his life ended, although Linda Sanchez recently made a strong argument in True West magazine that Mormon ranchers he raided in Mexico finally caught up with and killed him. This post and 2 others, based on information in the excellent biography, The Apache Kid, by Phyllis de la Garza, shows why deadly Apaches, escaping Anglo outrages, came to seek comfort in the Sierra Madre and tells the story of Kid's unjust court-martial, pardon, and retrial before his famous escape. This essay is based on a previously published story found in Apacheria, True Stories of Apache Culture, 1860 to 1920 and published in March 2018. In May 1887, Al Sieber, Chief of Scouts, and Captain Pierce at the San Carlos Agency went on an inspection tour to Fort Apache and the White River Sub-Agency. Kid, a sergeant of scouts and a Sieber favorite, was left in charge of the San Carlos Scouts and Guardhouse. The Apaches learned that Pierce and Sieber would be gone a while and decided it was a good time for a major homebrew Tizwin party. When Kid learned that his own band, registered as the I Band by the military, was making Tizwin, he sneaked away alone early one evening to join family and friends in a good drunk. From there Kid, 2 half-brothers and 2 other scouts went AWOL for 5 days to kill an Apache named Drip who had put his brother up to killing Kid's father, Tugadachuz. When Sieber returned and learned he had 5 scouts AWOL, and why, he sent word that Kid and the others were to report to him immediately. They came in around 5 p.m. June 1, 1887, and went directly to Sieber's tent where a big crowd of Indians had gathered to see what kind of punishment Sieber delivered to his scouts, especially his favorite. Captain Pierce joined Sieber at his tent and ordered the scouts to put down their weapons. Kid was first to comply. Pierce pointed to the guardhouse and said calaboose. From the crowd, Pierce saw a gun being leveled in the direction of Sieber and him. A shot rang out. There was a scuffle between Sieber and the scouts over the firearms they had just surrendered. Bullets filled the air and Sieber was hit in the ankle with a .45-70 slug, then standard army ammunition, that crippled him for life. It was never proven who shot Sieber, but it definitely wasn't Kid or the others who had been AWOL. They were too busy escaping. After a long chase lasting nearly a month, Kid and the others surrendered to General Miles on June 25, 1887. All 5 scouts, including Kid, were court-martialed and sentenced to death by firing squad. General Miles refused to accept the death sentence. The court reconvened and changed the death sentence to a life sentence at hard labor at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. Kidd and the other scouts were held nearly 7 months in the San Carlos guardhouse from June 25, 1887 until January 23, 1888, when Lieutenant General Sheridan, commanding general of the U.S. Army, ordered that, instead of Fort Leavenworth, they be held in the federal prison on Alcatraz Island in California. After reviewing the court-martial records, Judge Advocate General G. Norman Lieber found prejudice among officers serving on the jury, that the punishment didn't fit the crime, and that the interpreter, Antonio Diaz, had probably been out of line when the prisoners first surrendered to Sieber and Pierce, telling them they would go to Alcatraz for life. Secretary of War William C. Endicott agreed with Lieber's findings, and on October 29, 1888 remitted the sentences to time served, about 16 months counting that in the San Carlos guardhouse, and ordered the prisoners be allowed to return to San Carlos. They arrived back home on the stage from the train station at Casa Grande, Arizona, and upon crossing the Gila River at San Carlos, the 10th Cavalry Band met them at the river and played them back into camp. Upon seeing this, friends of Al Sieber, crippled for life during the shooting melee, were infuriated. 3 of the scouts were never heard from again. However, Kidd and a scout named Bakian Al would, within a year, again be facing an unjust jury trial. Arizona Territory had a dual judicial system in which judges served as both federal and territorial judges. In criminal cases, a judge had to decide whether the procedures followed would be federal or territorial. If territorial, the guilty were sent to Yuma Territorial Prison. In March of 1885, an act of Congress required that an Indian committing murder whether on or off a reservation was to be tried according to territorial law in the same courts and manner as other persons within the exclusive jurisdiction of the United States. In 1888, in response to an appeal by the Indian Rights Association, the Supreme Court ruled that the federal district courts had usurped the power of the Arizona territorial courts in convicting Apaches of murder and ordered them freed. Simmering anger and frustration among the white community and the military became a boiling pot. The territory was determined to arrest and retry those Apaches and others freed by the Supreme Court decision. Since being shot in the ankle in June 1887, Al Sieber had 2 years to feel the pain of his wound that would never heal and to let the resentment of those he held ultimately responsible grow. By October 14, 1889, a stack of complaints for Indians to be rearrested and tried in Arizona Territorial Court was in the hands of Gila County Sheriff, Glenn Reynolds. The Supreme Court decision that freed the Indians already in prisons had absolutely nothing to do with the Kidd case. However, case number 157 in Sheriff Reynolds' complaints stated, the defendant, Kidd, did on the first day of June 1887 assault with intent to murder one Al Sieber warrant of arrest issued. Within several days all the Indians except Kidd had been arrested, and soon through a clever ploy by Reynolds' chief deputy so was Kidd. Kidd, and 2 others, men named C.S. and Pashtenta, who told the court his name was Bakian Al, were all tried for attempted murder against Al Sieber. The accusations at the trial and what really happened made no sense. Nevertheless, a jury found all 3 guilty. Kidd, C.S., and Pashtenta were each sentenced to 7 years at hard labor at the Yuma Territorial Prison. Later that afternoon the prisoners were lined up in front of the courthouse for group pictures probably taken by some enterprising newspaper reporter. Most of the information presented in this story is from The Apache Kid by Phyllis de la Garza. The Hidden Apaches, The Apache Kid, Part 1. From Killer of Witches.